You don't gotta go home, but you can't stay here. And no, I don't wanna be alone.
Hey there, YouTube. This is Cinedave for Cinedave Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing Bright. It's a Netflix original film starring Will Smith. When I first saw some of the trailers, I was thinking, oh, cool, this is going to be similar to the Shadowrun role-playing game from the 90s, where you had cyberpunk with fantasy elements and stuff. And I was a bit disappointed with the fact that it's more like a modern, gritty, not a dystopian future, but an alternate future where you've got orcs, humans, and elves living in similar locations, although the elves have cordoned themselves off from basically the rest of society and are a bunch of uppity rich people, apparently. Though one of the themes that they were tackling was racism, and I felt this wasn't explored enough, and I kind of felt like Will Smith's character was a bit wishy-washy as far as where he stood. I thought it could have been a really good buddy cop movie, and it would have been nice to see Will Smith defending his partner over the rest of the police force. It's interesting. They did some world building, but it's really surface level. It doesn't really go in depth. It would have been nice to see like an opening scene, kind of like something from Lord of the Rings style, and then just, I mean, it doesn't have to be super long. It can be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just something to establish the orcs and the elves and the human dichotomy as far as, oh, this is what their relationship is, and then going to the future, or as what seems to be the present day, how nothing has really changed that much, and it's still the same structures. The elves are still the snooty rich dudes, and the orcs are the brutish rough dudes, and the humans, some are rich and some are poor. I felt the magic was done really well when they showed it. It was very light on the magic part, and it was very light on the fantasy part too. One of the things I tend to dislike about movies is when they change the rules of certain character types, such as in Blade 1, you show all these badass vampires, and then there's the sequel Blade 2, and then they basically nerfed all the vampires. And that kind of happens in this film by itself. You've got these badass, they're called Infernies, something like that. You'll have to watch it. And they're showing it all the way up until the end when they meet the main characters to be super badass. And I think they could have improved the film just by doing some small things. I mean, because the way they show these people just going through gang members, going through SWAT team members, and a whole bunch of them too, like they're nothing, and that's going to be due to their elf reflexes, and I'm assuming their experience. I'm also assuming that the elves are blessed with long life, kind of like the Tolkien elves. But I don't know. Again, lack of world building slash backstory for the races. And they talk about bringing a Dark Lord back, which reminds me of Blade again, where they're trying to bring the vampire blood god to life, and they're trying to bring back this Dark Lord. And then there's this prophecy thing, which is touched on lightly. It should have been more in depth. It was kind of interesting how they were passing it on via some crazy dude. Supposedly, maybe he's a mental patient. They ended up encountering and arresting and throwing in their squad car. And that crazy person ends up speaking Orcish to Will Smith's partner. So I was like, okay, this is interesting, but how much does it have an effect on the film? And it's like they were trying to set something up, but they didn't go all the way with it. That's the same thing with the issue of racism of the humans versus the orcs. They could have went a lot more in depth on that, and they just really didn't. I think there was a lot of opportunity for that, and they just didn't do it. I really liked the federal magic dudes. There was just a human guy, big burly dude with red beard, and then there was this elvish dude, and I really liked his character, even though he's not shown much, but he had a really strong presence. I think that's the best way to describe it. Overall, I would say this film rates about a 7.5 out of 10. I'd recommend watching it, and if you haven't already seen it. So it's definitely watchable, definitely has some interesting moments. I enjoy watching fight scenes, especially martial arts stuff, and that's because I'm interested in doing that kind of thing myself. If you just watch it just for that, you'll be entertained by that alone. Again, there's some odd parts I forgot to mention. They're with this orc gangster, and I'm looking at his motivations, and I can understand his motivation to a point, but then he does something that would seem to be a counterpoint, unless he was trying to prove something. Now, all they had to do is throw a couple lines in there, like, okay, well, you're supposed to be in this prophecy, well, let's see if it's true. I mean, that would have changed that scene and the results of the scene. There was an orcish shaman in the back. I thought that was kind of cool effect to throw in there, and he did have a comment on what had happened, but it wasn't, I don't think, as powerful as it could have been if the gang leader himself would have said what I had just mentioned about, let's prove it, let's see what you can do. You haven't done anything wrong so far, and let's see if you can survive this. And I guess the prophecy is true. And then that could have led to a different ending as well. Spoiler alert. So at the very end, the way the heroes, I guess, win, it seemed a little bit cheesy because of what is shown and set up earlier about what these elf inferni are capable of. And then it seemed like they were no longer capable of the things that they just had done. So I do recommend this. It's a good, fun film. Go ahead and watch it, and then if you do watch it, you can come back and make a comment and say, hey, you're right, or hey, you're way off base, you're crazy. And if you like this review, go ahead and click that like button. If you like what I'm doing here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And I will see y'all in the next review.